Welcome to Storytime with Cozy Melka, where we gather to share tales about responsibility, courage, and honesty. As we come together, let's put on our listening ears as we're transported into amazing stories. For this episode, we'll be learning about bravery versus injustice as we continue our tale about the clever rogue, Robin Hood and his merry men. So without further ado, let's find a cozy spot, grab a friend, and let's enjoy a great story. Chapter 10, The Rescue of Maid Marian. About a fortnight after the tournament of Nottingham, when Roger the Cruel's back had so far healed that he could go out again, and the Sheriff of Nottingham had proclaimed far and wide that he would give 50 marks to any man in return for Robin Hood's head, Isambard de Bellamy came to Hugo de Renault, Abbot of St. Mary's. Hugo welcomed his ally in his own comfortable room in the abbey, sent for a flagon of his best wine, and settled to hear what Isambard had to say. "The summer is passing," said Isambard, "and I would get married before the crops are gathered, Abbot Hugo." "A wise resolve," Hugo agreed, nodding. "So you come to me for a priest to marry you in the chapel of Bellamy?" "A priest, yes," said Isambard, "and the bride as well, according to our bargain, which I lent you 30 of my men to root out the outlaws from Sherwood Forest." "Surely, man," the abbot protested, "you would not claim this bargain?" "A bargain is a bargain," Isambard retorted. "But what came of it? The rascally outlaws spoiled my steward and his men of their armor and clothes and sent them out to be a laughing-stock, and Robin Hood is stronger than ever." "Hugo," said Isambard, "it was agreed that if I lent you 30 men to follow Guy of Gisborne, the maid Marian would be given to me. Now I claim her of you. I, too, have lost 30 good suits of my men's armor over that venture, and I tell you, Abbot, that a bargain is a bargain." "Not this bargain," the abbot insisted stubbornly. Isambard got on his feet. "If you break your word with me, Hugo," he said, "we are friends no longer, and I will spoil your lands with the rest." "Sit down, man," said Hugo, "and let us talk it over. Be not so hasty. You say you would wed this maid?" "That was the bargain," Isambard agreed, sitting down again. Hugo reflected a while, for he could not afford to break his friendship with Isambard. "Well," he said, when he had thought it out, "the maid has no taste to be a nun, and she must marry somebody. I will send to Kirklees and bid her prepare to marry you." "When?" Isambard asked rather grimly. "I will send a man tomorrow," the abbot promised. "Now look you, Abbot," said Isambard, "this is no matter for shifts and tricks. Send your steward, Guy of Gisborne, with an escort of a dozen good men, and have the maid convoyed safely to my castle of Bellamy within the week. Send me, too, a priest to marry us, and the bargain will be kept. Shall it be so?" Hugo nodded assent, reluctantly, for there was no way out of it that he could see. When Isambard had gone, he sent for Guy of Gisborne and explained what must be done. "So you take the men, Guy, and set out tomorrow," he bade. "Have them all well mounted and ride to Kirklees for the maid. And see that you go well armed, and keep clear of Robin Hood and his men till the maid is safely at the castle of Bellamy." Guy flushed with anger, for he had no liking for reminders of the way Robin Hood had served him and his men in Sherwood. But he went out obediently enough to do the abbot's bidding. Next day came a wandering beggar into Robin Hood's retreat in Sherwood, one of the scouts who brought in news every day to the outlaws' hold, and he told Guy of Gisborne and his men were setting out to escort Marian from Kirklees. "Aye," said Robin, "but where do they take her? Not to the abbey, surely, for that is no place for her." "They take her to Castle Bellamy to be married to Isambard, Robin." "What?" Robin shouted. "Marry a fair maid to that thieving wolf? Is the maid willing, think you?" "She knows not of it," said the beggar. "Abbot Hugo made a bargain with Isambard over the loan of certain men for hunting you, and Isambard claims his price." "Ah, the foul Norman thief," said Robin in disgust. "Now, I say, this shall not be. One wife of Isambard's has pinned to death in Evilhold, and there shall be no more while I rule in Sherwood. Once she gets to Evilhold, and Friar Tuck lessened, there is no rescuing her, Robin." "She shall not get to Evilhold," Robin answered. "Let us arm a couple of score of the band with the good armor we took from Guy of Gisborne and his men, and ambush him on his way to Isambard's castle." And so it was done. Robin set out spies to find out the road by which Guy of Gisborne would travel to Evilhold, and when the time came, set out with his men and lay up in a thicket beside the track, a little beyond Worksop. They had waited half a morning and began to fear that Guy had taken some other road, when Robin spied a couple of armed men riding down from the Yorkshire border, and there was talk of the clatter of hoofs behind them. When they were still a score yards away, he stood out alone in the middle of the track and saw Guy, heavily armed, leading a white palfrey on which rode the maid he had been sent to find at Kirklees and escort to Isambard's hold. With an arrow on the string, Robin stood, and the two foremost men reined at the sight of him. "Stand, Guy of Gisborne!" Robin cried. "Deliver up the maid for safe escort back to Kirklees, and I will do you no harm." They say that Marian, seeing him standing there, one man defying a score, loved him for that minute. For the journey had been a thing of dread for her, and she loathed the thought of going to Evilhold, yet could see no way of escape, since she was Hugo's ward and must do his bidding. But Guy pointed to the lone figure with a yell. "Robin Hood, seize him, men! 50 gold marks wait for the man who takes him! At him, you villains!" Now 50 gold marks in those days would buy a farm and leave some over, so Guy's men needed no second bidding. The two foremost spurred at him, one a little in front of his fellow, and Robin's arrow crashed into the brain of the leading horse, which, falling to earth, lay in the track, so that the second rider came to grief. The two of them lay stunned and helpless, one pinned down by the dead horse, and the other kicked by his floundering steed before it got up and galloped away. "Must I be always balked by this rascally hound?" Guy roared in rage. "At him, you others, and seize the outlaw!" But not one of them moved to obey, for Robin had another arrow on the string, and they knew since the tournament at Nottingham that he never missed. With a curse, Guy dropped the palfrey's rein, drew his sword, and spurred at the lone figure just as Robin raised his silver bugle and blew a blast on it. Suddenly, the woods became alive with armed men surrounding the maid and Guy's followers, while Robin stepped aside as his enemy thundered past and stooped to evade the swish of the sword. "Foul stroke, Guy," he said, as Guy tried to rein in and come back at him. "Get down, man, and let us have it out." But Guy looked back and saw that his men were all being disarmed and pinioned by Robin's followers, who outnumbered his party by 2 to 1 and more. He struck at his spurs and galloped on, leaving Marian to her fate. Robin watched the fleeing man for perhaps 100 yards and then lifted his bow. The heavy arrow sang on its way and took the horse behind his shoulder, so that he came down with a mighty crash, and Guy lay in his armor on the track. Robin strode up to him and prodded him with his foot, laughing. "Why, man," he said, "this is a poor sort of escort. To leave a maid in distress in the hands of savage outlaws is no sort of play for an honest steward. How will it sound in the ears of Abbot Hugo when he hears?" Guy scrambled to his feet. "Mocker and thief," he said fiercely. "If I had but my sword, you shall mock no more." Robin pointed to where his sword had fallen. "Take the sword," he said. "And though you be in armor and I but clad for the woods, we will try about here and now, steward. For surely you will strike a blow for the maid you were set to guard." The game was up, Guy knew. He could not hope to get Marian out of the clutches of Robin and his men, and with his horse lying dead, there was no chance of flight. "And if I beat you," he said sullenly, "your men will but kill me." Now, Robin protested. "That is the way of a Norman cure, I know well, but it is not the way of us in the greenwood. Should you beat me, Guy of Gisborne, you go free to your master, but the maid shall not go to Isambard and Evilhold. So take your sword, and let us see if your work with it is as big as your bragging." Without more ado, Guy took up his sword and found Robin ready when he turned to stand on guard. They went at their grim work with a will, and the flashing blades ground on each other as they thrust and parried, while Robin's men, having disarmed and tied up Guy's followers, came round to watch the duel, and Marian urged the palfrey forward with a prayer for the safety of her deliverer. For 10 minutes or more, the blades flashed in the sunlight, and Guy panted in his armor, striving with every trick he knew to get past Robin's guard, but in vain. By the end of that time, it was apparent that Robin was merely playing with his opponent, dancing around him and fencing lightly with a smile on his lips. "Now steady, Guy," he bade mockingly. "Save breath, man, save breath. If the abbot had no better swordsman than you, his abbey's poorly guarded. Bad thrust. Try again." A little ripple of laughter went up from the watchers, which infuriated Guy. He made a couple of wild passes that Robin parried easily, and then with a twist so quick that no man could tell quite how it was done, Robin ripped his sword out of his grasp and sent it flying into the bushes. "Now, Steward," he said, lowering his own point, "what shall we do with you? We have already one suit of your armor, and it would be a pity to spoil you of this you wear." "Mock me no more," said Guy suddenly, "but kill me and make this an end." "This is no day for killing," Robin answered. "Get you gone to Abbot Hugo and tell him the maid is in safe keeping on her way back to Kirklees. Tell him, too, that if Isambard press his suit any more, I will come and burn Evilhold about his ears." "You mean to let me go?" Guy asked incredulously. "Why should I keep you?" Robin answered. "It would be but wasting the food that a good man might eat, and we in Sherwood do not hunt the deer to feed such as you." He turned and beckoned to Little John. "Turn these men of his loose, each with his hands so tied behind his back so they cannot untie each other, he said. And tie Guy's hands too, and put him on a horse, for he is tired after that bout with the sword. Now, do you, Guy, ride with these men where you will, so long as you ride away from here, and see that you do not come against me again, or I may not treat you so easily next time. When Little John and the rest had done his bidding, Robin watched Guy and his sorry band of followers ride off towards St. Mary's Abbey. Then he turned to Marian, who still sat waiting on the white palfrey. She was slim and fair, the chronicles tell, with great blue eyes and hair of gold. A right fair maid who at her father's death had been given into the wardship of Abbot Hugo till she should come of age and marry with his approval. Robin made her a low bow. We have saved you from the clutch of Eisenbert de Bellamy, he said, and now, if you will, we will escort you back to safety at Kirklees. Good sir, she answered, I have no wish to go back to Kirklees, for if I did, I should still be at the mercy of Abbot Hugo, who perhaps would yet find a way to send me to the fiend who rules in Evilhold. Why, that is true, said Robin, yet a fair maid like you cannot wander about the world with nobody to guard and shelter you, and all your lands and wealth are in Hugo's clutches, I know. Where can you go if not Kirklees? Marian looked down and blushed. I am among loyal, honest men, I see, in spite of the tales I have heard of Robin Hood and his men. May I not remain among them? Robin came near and looked into her eyes. It would give us all great joy to have such a one among us, he told her. Yet the greenwood is no place for maidens who have been used to shelter and every care. 'Tis but a rough life we live in the forest glades, and you would soon weary of it. Good Robin, she answered, I had sooner have my freedom among good men, and go in rags and live in luxury, and no fear of those around me. Find me shelter, and when I come to my inheritance I will repay you. Nay, now, Robin said, there is no question of repayment. What say you, Little John? Shall we give her will, and take such a fair flower as this to the shelter of the forest? Marian turned to Little John. Good giant, she said, plead for me with your chief. I have great knowledge of medicines and the art of healing, and I can cook and sew for you. Well, Robin, said Little John, there is Will Scarlet's wife for company for her, and if she says she has knowledge of medicines, she may find something that will sweeten Dame Scarlet's tongue, for it is bitter enough, and so poor Will have an easier time. Think what it would have been for me if I had been taken to Evilhold, good Robin, Marian urged. Is life in the greenwood any worse than such a fate as that? If it were, Robin answered, I would go and beg the sheriff of Nottingham to hang me out of hand. I see no choice, Marian, for, as you say, if we take you back to Kirklees, Eisenbart will get you sooner or later, and there is no other place that would hold you now that Abbot Hugo has bidden that you be given up. But it is a poor fate for such a maid as you. She looked down at him. It is such a fate as I would ask, she said, and I will come and be one of your band gladly. Now let us go on, lest Guy of Gisborne rouse up more men to fight you. Robin laughed. If Guy's fighting is all we are likely to suffer from, he said, life will be an easy business. You shall come and be Queen of Sherwood, Marian. How say you, men? Will she not make a fair queen to rule over our band? Little John flung his hat in the air. Here is a joyous adventure, he cried. 3 cheers, all of you, for the Queen of Sherwood. They roared their cheers so lustily that Abbot Hugo might have heard them at St. Mary's had he been listening. Robin reached up and grasped Marian's hand. Remember, he said, that there is a king in Sherwood too, Marian. Would you be queen to me as well as to Sherwood? Right gladly, she answered, for I have seen no such man as you in all my life, and I owe you freedom and everything else from today. Robin gave the word to move, and they set out on their way back to the forest hold. And they went. Little John came up beside his leader, who rode the white palfrey, talking to Marian. Robin, said Little John, 'twas a lucky chance that sent you to win our friar to the band, for now he can do the marrying between you two, and we shall have no need to borrow a priest from St. Mary's. True, said Robin, and we will make a feast day of it, and set the good friar to cooking after he has made us two man and wife. So it was done, and they say that there was no such fair and loving wife in all the Midlands as was Maid Marian to Robin Hood, and though he knew that he had made a bitter enemy of Eisenbert de Bellamy by this rescue, Robin slept none the worse for it. Eisenbert, furious as he was, remembered how 30 men of his and 20 of the abbots have been sent out of Sherwood in their shirts, so he took no action for the time, but he waited for revenge all the same.
Robin Hood outro, option 2, in 3, 2.
Thank you for joining us for Story Time with Cozy Malka. We'd love for you to share with our friends what you learned from tonight's tale. Join us next time for the continuing adventures of Robin Hood.